You are live at Daytona International Speedway, working the 17th hour of the Rolex 24 at Daytona. And all of the usual challenges of racing 24 hours flat out around this 3.5 mile combined oval and road course are taking their usual toll. There is Scott Pruett. Throughout the night, the weather, the fatigue, the mechanical and human failure, Pruett and his teammates with the Telmex Chip Ganassi with Felix Sabatis Racing Team have been solid as a rock on or near the lead, and they now lead a tremendous battle in both Daytona Prototype and the GT class at the Rolex 24. Welcome back to Speed at Daytona. Welcome to Daytona and Speed's 15 hours of live coverage of one of the world's greatest motorsports classic, the Rolex 24 at Daytona, now in its 45th year at Daytona International Speedway. Since we left you 8 hours ago, we have seen rain. We have seen only the third red flag in the history of this race, and we have seen a tremendous battle. About 150 laps have been run since we left you last night. 9 leaders, 21 overall lead changes. Last year we saw 39 in all. The record is 44 exchanges of the lead. 9 full course caution flags. Scott Pruett is the race leader in the 0-1 car, but that is just the beginning of the story. He is on the same lap as Patrick Carpentier in the number 11 Citgo car, and those two teams have been battling all night long. Here are the top 10 in Daytona Prototype and overall. João Barbosa now in the 59 car. Roberto Moreno's been doing great work for the Brumos Porsche team, just 2 laps down, as is Scott Dixon in the second Ganassi car, and Max Angelelli. They've had clutch problems in the 10 car, but they are hanging tough. 7th through 10th, Michael Valiente in the 19 car. They have had a long night, as have everyone. The 23 Ruby Tuesday car now has American Patrick Long behind the wheel. They too have had mechanical problems, spent some time in the garage, but that's how it works here at Daytona. The GT class battle has been an absolute Donnybrook. Look at these gaps. Jorg Hart in the 85 Porsche now leads Andy Pilgrim just 3 seconds behind. Another half-minute back is Kevin Buckler, former overall and class winner with his Racers Group team running in 3rd. Then Lance Arnold in 4th. Randy Pope's the first car a lap down. 4 cars on the lead lap, including the class leader. As we go to 6th through 10th, notice the gaps. Mart Bassing, just 1 lap down to the race leader. Johnny O'Connell in one of those brand new Pontiac GXP-R, just 2 laps down, as is Jim Pace in another Porsche. And then 2 more laps back to Brent Martini and Justin Jackson. Now let's get you set on time. Less than 7.5 hours remaining in this 24-hour battle, and a key factor has been the weather. We saw rain last night about 2:30 in the morning, just as we were coming off the red flag, which was brought out by a car taking out part of the trackside fencing, and the forecast calls for perhaps the heaviest weather we have seen yet here at Daytona International Speedway. Other than that, it's been a pretty uneventful evening as we welcome you to our speed announce position high above the start-finish line. I'm Bob Varsha along with David Hobbs. David, that Ganassi team, champions last year, looking very strong again this year.
Well, of course, Juan Pablo Montoya looking better every day. I mean, absolutely cracking form during the night in that wet. Drove stoutly for 2 double stints and very, very quick all the time. And of course, when you say rain at Daytona, you've got a real sort of dichotomy here, because you've got the banking and the water runs straight off it. The infield is very flat. There's no camera on the road, obviously no elevation change, and it puddles really, really badly. So you need to have your slick tires on because the banking dries out so quickly, and obviously the wet tires just don't like that banking. But as you can see here from the glistening track, if you get offline on those slicks, I mean, you are in deep trouble. So these guys are going to really pick their line here, and of course overtaking slower cars is very difficult.
It has been a huge battle all night long. Now let's meet the men who will take you through the early morning hours down in the pit lane, beginning with Calvin Fish.
Well, Bob, as David mentioned, the 01 car certainly been very fast during the night. Juan Pablo Montoya did a great stint there. The car currently driven in the lead by Scott Pruett. Now, this is a very important race for Scott Pruett. Round one, they really got in a hole here last year with problems at Daytona. So this year, they've split their forces, going for the season championship. It's both Scott Pruett and Memo Rojas. Memo Rojas in the 02 car here. So Scott Pruett really needs to finish in front of his teammate, grab that points lead and carry that through the championship season. I just checked in with the team manager, Tim Keane. He said we've had a very smooth run through the night. Remember yesterday, they were running a low downforce setup. I said, did you add downforce for the wet conditions? He said, no, we just stuck with our game plan. They were fast, but they were probably not the fastest car on the racetrack during the night. The number 11 machine has been extremely fast. The Samex Racing entry, really brilliant through the night. Went down a couple of laps twice and made it back on that lead lap. The car currently driven by Patrick Carpentier. Peter Barron, the Samex owner there, said, we've got a very fast car. We just keep pushing hard. We want to stick with those Ganassi boys. The number 59 machine, there was a great battle going on there through the night between Roberto Moreno and Juan Pablo Montoya. I spoke to Bob Snodgrass. He said, boy, we caught Montoya and we passed him. He said, I can't tell you how that makes the team owner feel. He said, I'm very proud of that boy. And the guy was brilliant during the night. It's very exciting stuff here, but more on GT. Let's go down to Brian.
Thanks, Calvin. GT, as Bob was saying earlier, has been a battle all throughout the night. Not surprising to see a Porsche up front. Farnbacher-Lowell's a very strong team. That 85 car at the hands of Jörg Hart right now has dodged some bullets. They lead in GT, but the rain, always the great equalizer. The 07, the Pontiac, driven by Kelly Collins and Andy Pilgrim, and also Paul Edwards. They have run a great stint throughout the night, and throughout the rain, that straight line speed that they have been lacking. The rain, it equalized it. They have moved that car up to second. The 70 car, the Mazda, they've been in the top 5 all night long. We talked about the reliability of that machine. That has kept them there. But the real story has been the number 66, the Racers Group Porsche, that was as many as 6 laps down at one point in time. They have climbed their way back onto the lead lap through strategic calls. They're back there. Looking at the timing stand behind me, the team, very interesting. Blonde lady up there, Kevin Buckler's wife, Deborah, the most interested spectator out there. Why? Not only has she and her husband, they've won this before overall and in class, but right now, Kevin Buckler behind the wheel of that number 66 machine. They're looking for another victory, guys.
All right, thanks very much, guys. There's the 66 being passed by the faster Daytona prototypes.
And that's where you're going to be. You can see how wet it is offline. And these guys, when they're letting people through, they have to be careful. And of course, the fast guys trying to get by have to be very careful. There's Kevin Butler, 6 laps down at one stage. As Brian just said, I mean, that is an amazing change of fortune.
Kevin Buckler is a true racer. Took himself out of the cars to run his massive Racers Group operation last year, but he wanted to get back in. Back in 2003, they made history, becoming only the 2nd GT car to win the overall, driving with Jörg Bergmeister and Timo Bernard on that occasion. And look at the crew in the 10 garage. Oh my gosh. I tell you what, it is really tough on these mechanics, and these guys have had to work hard. If you were with us for the opening hours of our coverage yesterday afternoon, that car was in and out of the garage as a number of the Pontiac-powered Daytona prototypes had to deal with overheating electrical coils that was causing the engines to develop a misfire.
It's Mark Scott in the middle there. Obviously part of the Riley Scott team. Now he's on his own, but he came in to help the SunTrust people in the number 10 car. Obviously one of the drivers in that, Jeff Gordon. They've had a pretty star-crossed day. They've got a clutch problem, but they went down a long way. And that SunTrust car is now up to 5th. With Jeff Gordon behind the wheel. Obviously a guy who's not particularly used to driving in the rain.
Now Calvin Fish makes a great point. This is but the first of 14 races in the 2007 season for the Grand American Rolex Sports Cars Series presented by Crown Royal Special Reserve. There's Max the Axe Angelelli, a former overall winner with longtime teammate Wayne Taylor. They have had, as I mentioned, an interesting day, but let's get a look at the entire Daytona prototype battle going back through the early moments of the race. Alex Gurney put the 99 car on pole for this race, then got involved with this collision with an unsighted GT car that broke the right front and forced him to the pits for a long time. Jeff Gordon got in for his first stint in the 10 car and went right into the pit wall, which a lot of great racers have done. Mark Patterson was behind the wheel of the number 60 Lexus Riley. He had problems. There's the chicane. Look at that excavation.
A couple of tons of sand on it. This was one of the most unfortunate night. A 41 car sandwich between two GPTs, and look at this, the 58 car was doing so well.
Long repairs for that car, but there is the 58.
That was just one of those things, being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it doesn't matter how much you strategize, how much you plan, whatever you do for these, that is just one of those things. I mean, boy, oh boy, that car bounced off the other Daytona prototype, bounced into the side of him, another foot, and it was spun harmlessly behind him.
Well, the actual damage was done by the cars behind as these guys went banging around up front. Everybody behind, and there were about 12 to 14 cars stacked up behind him, got on the brakes. A lot of cars were damaged even worse than the 58. Now let's go back to the GT story and hear from one of the heroes of the night with Brian Till.
Bob, we chronicled the move of the 66 car up, Andy Lally behind the wheel of that car throughout the night when it rained. Give us some idea and give the fans at home some idea what the racetrack was like last night in the rain.
Well, when it's really coming down, actually, the toughest thing to do is see, period. If you're in a pack of cars, there's so much of a rooster tail that throwing up this big gray mist, and we're doing a $175 down the front straight here, and you're just a wall of gray. All you've got is your peripheral out the windows. Once you get to the infield, it settles down a bit because the speed comes down, and then after that, you're just sliding for life. I mean, these Hoosiers are great tires, but the infield's slippery. There's a lot of debris, a lot of oil, a lot of marbles down, and it's a tap dance. You're sliding and just carving, trying to carve your way through, and the back end stepping out. And these Porsches are really good about putting power down on the back end, and we were able to move our way up through it.
All of that when you're going 160 plus miles an hour and you can't see, but the strategy seems like is what really has moved you guys up from 6 laps down. You want to give us some insight to the strategy that you guys have used?
No. It's of course not over yet, so maybe at the end of the race we'll tell you what we've been doing. But I got to say thanks to TRG, Kevin, the whole crew here, Lars leading the way here. Our guys have been working real hard to give us a fast car, and we've been able to move up through the field. We brought on Pompelli, Greenberg, and RJ also doing this deal, and it's just been a good event so far.
Andy Lally looking for another Rolex. He's won one here at this event and 3 for championships. Hey, why not have 5 of them, Cal?
Well, that'd certainly be great, but I don't think it's going to be any Rolexes going to the drives of this number 58 machine. They just had a further problem, broken steering arm on the right front with Buddy Rice behind the wheel. I'm not sure if there was any contact. I don't see any more damage to the right front of this car. Remember, this car took a huge hit right before we went off the air last night at about 9:45. Scott Sharp behind the wheel. Speaking of the team, it took them an hour and a half to fix that car and get it back on track. And this is such a shame for this group of drivers who really felt they had a winning car here. The 59 car still running strong in 3rd place, but these guys, David Donahue, Darren Law, going for a championship as well as a 24-hour win here. So this is a devastating blow to their championship, and certainly their hopes of victory here today.
No question about that. 48th when they pitted. They will drop down the charts. The battle continues. We have a long way to go here in the 45th edition of the Rolex 24. Some folks are going to sleep well and long and deeply when this race is over. We'll be back to Daytona. 01 car from Telmex. Chip Ganassi Racing. He has fallen to 2nd place after a pit stop, but remains on the lead lap with the new leader, the 11, in the hands of Patrick Carpentier of Canada. Number 11 Citgo car now leads the way. Sunrise is expected in about an hour, but it may be later than that before the skies lighten over Daytona. We have heavy overcast, and we expect more rain in the final 6 hours of this race. I'm Bob Varsha with David Hobbs, Brian Till, and Calvin Fisher down in the pit lane. There is the 11, our new race leader, Patrick Carpentier, open-wheeled veteran, making his first start, or first serious start, I should say, here at Daytona. Sharing this Pontiac Riley with Darren Manning of England, Ryan Dial of Scotland, and Milcaduno from Venezuela. And now let's have a look at our current standings among the drivers from various other forms of motorsports. How about NASCAR Nextel Cup competition? We have 4 Cup champions, Gordon, Stewart, Labonte, and Johnson in the race. And that's where they stand, both in the Daytona prototype, or DP class, and overall. Gordon's number 10 SunTrust car is 5th. Tony Stewart's car 42nd. They have had a litany of problems, including a crash so heavy. Andy Wallace was in the car, was hit by another car so hard it dislocated his jaw, believe it or not.
Yeah, under caution.
Under caution.
The other car ran to the back of him under caution. Had to work that one out.
Among our Champ Car champions on hand, Jimmy Vasser and that 99 Gainsco Bob Stallings. Pontiac Riley started from pole, ran into early trouble. They are currently 38th in the overall. Juan Pablo Montoya, this has been a surprise to many. The former open-wheel star has been an absolute champion during the night. And his team is now actually in second place. They were first when we came on the air. They fell to second as Scott Pruett took over the car during a pit stop. And Paul Tracy's team started, is currently running 18th in the class, 33rd overall. Paul Tracy said this is his third start. He just wanted to get to 12 hours. He has accomplished that. The question is how far they will go. From the IRL IndyCar Series, their champion, Scott Sharp, currently 49th. They battled for the lead in the 58 car, that Brumos Porsche Riley, before encountering problems. Tony Stewart's woes have been documented. Scott Dixon in the 02 car, the second car from Ganassi, is currently 4th overall. Dan Weldon, he and Dixon, of course, were the defending champions last year. And Sam Hornish Jr., the reigning IndyCar titleist and Indy 500 winner, currently 21st in the number 60 car that has been on and off the track and in and out of the garage.
Well, that was the car that we saw digging up the dirt so successfully at the chicane earlier on yesterday afternoon. So they haven't had much luck. This car, this 11 car, was a revelation during the night. Just absolute. The Owl driving, the Scottish driver was driving it, absolutely hammering it out nose to nose with Juan Pablo Montoya, which must have been great for the young Scot, and just drove brilliantly, brought the car right up into this second spot, now leading after that last pit stop. Obviously their pit stop's coming soon, and no doubt will reassert the order back into second spot, but nevertheless, right there on the same lap, hammering along. This car is now in with a genuine shot. Of course, there's still 7 hours of racing to go. And all these guys driving exceptionally well, because you can still see in these pictures, if you get offline, boy, it is slick.
Despite that, the lap times remain good.
They are good.
Pole was taken by Alex Gurney at 1:43.4, and that was a new lap record. Despite all that offline water and marbles buildup, the front runners, the fastest cars, are lapping in the 1:47 zone, which is very, very stout. Pit action. The 61 car is in. Calvin Fish.
They're having a great job here, Bob. They're currently 7th. David Empringham has jumped out. Remember, he has a little bit of experience in these type of cars. In fact, was the first Daytona prototype winner back here when this category initially got launched. Didn't win overall that year, but certainly got a Rolex on his wrist. Very young driving squad around side, David. Got young Mark Wilkins, the Canadian, jumping in now. He's going to be doing the full season, sharing the ride with Burt and Brian Frizzell, who will actually alternate different races throughout the course of the season. This is an ex-Ganassi car. Right now, you see a brake pad change being done on the front end. Very important here that there's good communication between the driver and the crew. The last thing you want to happen is once they push those pistons back in the caliper and pop the pads out, is for the driver to touch the brakes, because that would then push the pistons back out and they'd lose all of the fluid. So right now, driver pad change, brake pad change is being done. And this is typical. The fronts are going to wear out a lot faster than the rears. We're expecting 3 changes to the front pads, maybe 1 to the rear during the course of a 24-hour race. Typically, the wet conditions will ease that load on the brake pads, but this team's certainly having a great job here. Now, running underneath the AIM Motorsport banner in their race shop is the Doncaster number 17 GT entry. They led a little bit earlier, but about 10 minutes ago, they had to put the car back to the garage. They split a pipe that went to the radiator. There's a huge commotion here in pit lane. They made a smart decision, got it back to the paddock area, got all the crew around that car, changed the brakes, and also got that water leak fixed. So they expect the car to come in here shortly just to top him up with fuel, but they're going to be on a charge back towards the front of the GT field. They've had a couple of great runs here at Daytona. Had a disappointing run last year, but in 04 and 05, certainly finished up in the top 5.
That's right. Lance Arnold currently at the controls of the 17. 7th in class in this race last year, and a product of the UPS Porsche Junior team over in Europe, the same team that produced Patrick Long, currently the only American Porsche factory driver.
Patrick Long at the moment is lying 9th in the car number 23. He has a very good run a couple of times yesterday afternoon. He got around the lead car when it was being driven by Juan Pablo Montoya yesterday afternoon and took off in hot pursuit. Here comes the 07 car. driven by Andy Pilgrim.
Calvin
As you
Fisher
said earlier,
waits
this
that
car's
stop.
done so well. I mean, it came up from way down in the GT class. It's now on the same lap in second position.
Let me correct myself. Brian Till is there.
Car comes into a stop. This car running well all night long, as we chronicled earlier. One of the problems right now with this developmental Pontiac is that they're saying that the ride height mandated by the Rolex series just creates so much drag that it doesn't have the straight line speed that it needs, in addition to a larger front end than the Pontiac GTO had. So they struggled with that, but the rain, the great equalizer, top speed doesn't matter if you can't use it. So they clawed their way up to the night. Running second, Paul Edwards taking over. Should be a routine stop. Things looking good down here for the boys at Banner Racing in Pontiac. Al?
Well, the 17 car was just in, and basically what they needed to do was purge that water system. They topped it up back in the garage just to double check they brought it in. Sometimes you get a little bit of an airlock within that water system, and you got to make sure you get that out, otherwise that can cause issues. So very experienced team here, led by John Lacey. David Lacey is his son, who's one of the drivers here. Very experienced driver lineup, and they had the experience to come back from this little hiccup here. Really regrouped very quickly, got the car back on track, and no mistakes.
And you saw just how wet it is down there on the pit lane. Grab sleep when you can here at the Rolex 24. These guys have been working hard all night long, and they have a long day of work ahead of them before we wrap things up at 1:30 Eastern Time this afternoon. Stay with us. There's your leaderboard. PR from Racer's Edge Motorsports, a late developing team. Just weeks really to get this team together around this car. It has just been creeping along the wall. We didn't see if Ross Smith actually made contact with the wall. There is some damage there toward the left front. Let's take a look at what happened to Ross Smith. Approaching the chicane. Oh! Did he keep it off the wall? Almost.
Just, I don't think that did any damage much, but he just lost it under braking again on that damp surface. He's trying to come in there 3 abreast.
That is a big effort, getting a team together in a short period of time for a challenge, both mechanical, physical, and logistical, like the Rolex 24. Now, since we left you at 10 o'clock Eastern last night, there's been plenty of action. We referred to it a little bit earlier. Let's take a look at some of the highlights. After the heavy crash involving 6 cars, the 58 car spent a long time in the garage. There you see the crew working heavily on the car, but it did get back out. As we were told earlier, the car's now back behind the wall with other problems. The 20 car suffered a massive rear end hit. Shortly after that, the number 82 GT car, driven by Chris Pallas, took out a long section of the interior fence. So Mark Raffoff, the chief steward of the race, had a decision to make to park the field and fix it.
This particular incident was just in an awkward place, and it's just something that requires it to be done right, and to do it right, like I said, we have to block the track with some heavy equipment, and rather than have guys driving around, you know, off course or in odd places, it was much more practical just to stop, and we have a process for that that allows the crews here at the Speedway to fix the thing and fix it right.
There you see the car. Chris Pallas was seen and released from the infield medical center following the crash. That takes one of the Team Seattle cars raising money for children's hospitals out of the race, and that is a shame. Then the rains came while the red flag took place. Juan Pablo Montoya looked around and said, "Hey guys, you sure you want me to go out now? Looks like it might be wet here in a little while." But he did go out, and he drove beautifully. The rain fell as the cars went back on track, did 4 laps under caution. Then we're turned loose once again. Rain or shine, we race here at Daytona. There's the 11 cars. David mentioned Ryan Dial doing great work with them. Rain growing heavier at times. And of course, with rain, you have to make repairs. Brake changes, rain tires, different settings. There's Jeff Gordon.
Who's hiding in the back of the pit thinking, no, look at me now.
He's had an interesting Rolex 24, but he's been a great sport about it. Max Angelelli and Jan Magnussen have been doing much of the heavy lifting during the night for the 10 team. And over at the 59, Brumos, Porsche Riley team, Roberto Moreno has been quite the star. There's the 85 GT Porsche that was leading that class as we came on air. Dirk Berner now driving that car, and they continue to lead the class. Here are the cars out of the race. Out of the 70 cars that started it, 3 of the Daytona prototype cars There you see 9 cars out of GT. The GT class, 42 strong at the start of this race, perhaps the biggest turnout for a single class in the history of the Rolex 24. For them, the race is over, and they'll look ahead to next year. Plenty of cars are still out there. And one of the other heavy incidents of the race took place right about that point. That was the point of impact when Argentine Gaston Mazzacani in the XM radio-sponsored Daytona prototype found that fence from quite a long distance away. We'll pull out the camera shot at the kink in the distance there, the back of your screen.
He traveled a long way then. That was before the rain, so the grass wasn't wet, but Mazzacani was knocked out for 8 minutes, and he's fine now, but that was a pretty stout crash, and that's one of the 3 DPs that's out.
Gaston Mazzacani was admitted to Halifax Medical Center, just about a half-mile from Daytona International Speedway. He was awake and alert. He will undergo precautionary x-rays and a CAT scan, but it appears right now that he was not seriously injured, and that's good news. That was a long slide across the grass before a heavy impact with one really of the few obstacles he could have found.
Absolutely, yes.
Seems hard to say, but I guess if you had to hit something.
Got the light there, the caution light at the chicane.
There are 2 of the key players during the night, the 11 Pontiac Riley and the number 59 Porsche Riley in the traditional Brumos colors. Team boss Bob Snodgrass noted that this car used to run in a bright Porsche orange, favorite color of Porsche founder Ferry Porsche. Then they decided they wanted an American red, white, and blue theme, but they wanted a blue that photographed well without mushing out and turning to gray. So they lightened up the blue, and those are the colors that have been on the car since 1973, when the late Peter Gregg and Hurley Haywood won for Brumos for the first time. Hurley Haywood is standing by in the pit lane with Calvin Fish.
Hurley, obviously the car's having a great run here today, and talk about the turnaround that this team has made over the last 12 months.
Well, once we got the new cars at the end of last year, we really started to focus on what we wanted to accomplish in 2007, and one, of course, is win the Daytona 24-hour. So we really worked very hard in structuring the team to make the team work better, and it's really paying off. We brought in Gary Nelson. We sort of changed some of the responsibilities of team members, and we have one team with 2 cars, and it's really showing it off. Each team helps the other team, and that's the whole ball game right there.
You've won this race overall 5 times. You've had a class victory as well, Hurley, but this month you felt that there's got that special feel, like you're going to do well, the car's running well. Do you still have that feel as we now get to daytime on Sunday?
Well, we're running just where we want to run, just at the pace we want to run. Hopefully the rain will stay away. We don't like the rain, but yeah.
We're showing you some history there on screen, Hurley.
Well, I hope I can repeat that. We've really worked hard to get back in that victory line, so with a little bit of luck, we might do it.
All right, mate, best of luck. Great run anyway.
Thanks.
Hurley Haywood may be the greatest racing driver America has produced that perhaps the average race fan hardly knows anything about. 2 victories in the 12 Hours of Sebring, 3 overall wins at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, 6 victories, including 5 overall among his 13 career wins here at Daytona International Speedway. Tied for most all time with the late Dale Earnhardt. Not bad at all. This is Hurley's 34th Rolex 24. He has completed over 61,000 miles at this racetrack. On board with the 23 Ruby Tuesday car. Let's listen.
There you see coming up to that car, just trying to stay on the dry bit.
boy, that looks treacherous. On board now with the 81 car. Pole sitter in the GT class, Patrick Hushman, 4-time Porsche Super Cup champion. Put the car on pole with a record lap.
Their race has not gone according to plan.
No, currently 36th in the overall, well back in the GT class. That unmistakable sound, though, of the Porsche engine that has won so many times, 20 times in all here at Daytona, as well as all those victories at Le Mans, Sebring, all of the endurance classics around the world. Off the infield and up onto the NASCAR banking in turns 1 and 2. Patrick Hushman from Germany, one of the most experienced Porsche specialists in the world, races both here and in Europe. We asked him to compare racing on both sides of the pond.
They're not heroes for me, although they have achieved a lot. I always concentrate on myself. I love to watch those guys racing, especially in NASCAR, but we all do the same job.
That was Patrick referring to the driver lineup here at Daytona. We spoke with dozens and dozens of drivers. Everybody wanted to say, oh, this is the best, this is fabulous, this is wonderful. Patrick Hushman thought about it for a second and said, nope, they're just like me.
Just drivers.
Yep, they're just drivers. There's a race to be won. You hear how quickly those gear changes happen. Sequential boxes in these state-of-the-art Porsche GT3 Cup cars. Here comes the 77 Daytona prototype. Right rear is down.
Yes,
you can see what it does to the braking.
It definitely doesn't help the braking. Well,
thank you for that expert analysis. This is Kevin Doran's creation. One of the original chassis builders in the Daytona prototype class, now in its 7th season. New chassis coming on the horizon, a new 5-year plan for the Grand American Rolex Sportscar Series. We may see some new chassis styles, and in a particular rule that I found interesting, they're going to allow manufacturers to put special bodywork on their cars to create their own distinctive appearance. Brian Till.
Car's in, routine stop, obviously it's in for that flat right rear tire, but they pull away. I can see just a little damage to the underside of the rear there behind the right rear tire, but it looks like they'll be okay. They got 4 tires fuel, back out on track, doing a great job. A lot of people didn't expect this car to run that far towards the front. They've been up there throughout the night and have actually had a pretty good run. Kevin Doran knows how to run 24-hour races, that's for sure.
Yes, he does. He has won a half dozen of them as a crewman, a mechanic, a crew chief, a constructor, and a car owner. There's a look at your leaderboard. We're going to take another break. We'll see when the sun finally does rise here at Daytona International Speedway. It'll be at least another 30 minutes before the sky begins to lighten here on the East Coast.
Welcome back to Daytona. Ryan Dial brings in the number 11 Sitco machine, turns it over to Darren Manning. Now, they were going to stretch their fuel a little bit longer here, but the team got pretty upset. They believe that the 02 car, which is running behind them, was slowing their pace to allow their sister car, the Chip Ganassi 01 machine, to close up to the leader. So Peter Barron and the crew made a pretty savvy call there, said, we're losing a little bit of ground, we're going to get him in now.
Oh my, excuse me, Calvin, there's a huge hit. That's the number 88. Ugh. We'll have a full course yellow, but that was a very, very heavy hit for the Farnbacher Lowe's Motorsports car. Justin Jackson behind the wheel, sharing with Tom Pank, Jan Charouz, Bryce Miller, and Craig Stanton.
You can see quite a bit of broken stuff on the track, so drivers got to be very careful picking their way through there. No one seems to be slowing down much, do they, as they go by there? It must be a local caution apart from the full course caution that's coming out now. Someone's smoking very badly. That's the 41 car going into the pits. Ooh, maybe that left some oil around there.
There was contact, yeah. Well, a blown engine that left oil on the track.
Either contact or it left oil around there.
Brian Till.
Car's just driven through, oil all over the back of it, and I can see some of it coming out of the backside. it looks like he's run over something on the track. Actually, the rear bumper, the cover of the rear bumper is pulled out from underneath, almost like he's hit something and it's run underneath the car and pulled out some of the oil lines from underneath it. So I don't know if there's debris on the racetrack, but I can guarantee you one thing, there's definitely oil.
Yeah, maybe he did run over that debris.
Well, there's the accident site. This is coming out of the chicane on the backstretch. That's the same place where Chad McQueen, son of the late actor and racer Steve McQueen, had a very heavy, similar accident, I'm guessing, in January of last year during testing for the 06 edition of the Rolex 24. Chad McQueen, after a long rehabilitation of very serious injuries, was in Daytona this week, saying hello to friends, watching preparations for this race. This is the Salins number 41. You can see the damage. There's some of the debris. It's an entire wheel assembly. Justin Jackson from Buford, Georgia, had a very heavy impact. It's like crews appear to be talking with him, or trying to. Brian Till in the pit lane.
Bob, take a look. You can see the damage to the back of the car here where it looks like he hit something or something came out from underneath it, taking oil lines with it. But what you see in the moisture down here on pit lane is the sheen of oil. Anywhere this car has been on the racetrack, there's going to be oil. And of course, you know what they say, oil and water, they don't mix.
Nor do they make for particularly good adhesion. Well, no particular urgency in the works of the medical crew.
That car hit that wall extremely hard,
boy,
as
at
you
both
can see,
ends.
to do that sort of damage to one of those Porsches. Obviously, it must have been a pretty straight head-on hit as he came out of the chicane. Again, could have gone wide, could have gone out that wet, you know, because it is extremely wet still there.
You can see the puddle just at the cones with the flashing emergency lights reflecting. Those puddles exist on both sides of that exit, and that is a very quick exit. And the drivers try to take it as fast as possible to get top-end speed through the high banks in NASCAR 3 and 4 and onto the front stretch.
Well, exactly. A quick exit from the chicane is vital, because from the chicane back to turn 1 is a long way, nearly a mile, or just a little bit over a mile, and so you've got to really leg it out of there.
Saw the standing water to the driver's left, the outside of the corner, as they make the right-left kink. Everybody being careful. No word yet on the condition of the driver. Apparently, it's been an eventful race for the Salins team. The 41 car was also involved in the incident with the 58 car last night. That led to the Brumos Porsche Riley spending a long time in the garage. Driver change here. Salvador Duran of Mexico going in relief of Scott Pruett.
Relatively short stint, so obviously taking the opportunity to make a driver change and tire and fuel change while they're under caution here.
Watch that driver change. Let's get more from Brian Till.
Bob, I just checked in with Tom Malloy, who was driving the number 41 Porsche. He said he hit the debris from Justin Jackson's crash. We had thought there was some speculation that maybe he had hit something and then dropped oil on the track. That's not the case. Jackson had found the wall. Malloy found the debris that was in the racetrack, but it did rip a huge section out from underneath this 41 machine.
Okay, we're now being told by the emergency crews that Justin Jackson, the driver of that 88 car that took that heavy impact, is out of the car and appears to be okay, and that's great news. There's the car going up on the flatbed.
Yes.
That is pretty amazing.
That's going to take some fixing, that car.
Let's go to Calvin Fish.
59 car is in. Joao Barbosa jumps out, and Hurley Haywood, we just spoke to him a few minutes ago, looking for that 7th victory here at Daytona. Looks like routine stuff. They changed the cool box for the driver's suit. They just blew out the radiator grills, cleaned the windshield, took a tear-off off, and just topped him up with fuel. So routine stuff here. There's a lot of action up and down pit lane right now. People taking advantage of this caution.
Well, we talk often when there are accidents in racing about the remarkable integrity of contemporary racing cars, and we just saw a great example of that. A massive impact for Justin Jackson from Georgia, He has climbed out. Apparently he is okay, and we are under a full course caution for the 10th time here at the Rolex 24. Turn your plain Jane cell phone into a souped-up hot rod. Log on to speedtv.com for custom wallpapers and ringtones. Satisfy your need for speed with high-octane ringtones and fuel-injected wallpapers from Speed Mobile. Log on to speedtv.com right now. Download your favorite ringtone and/or wallpaper. Now there you see the remains of the '88 Porsche GT3 Cup car being hauled away after Justin Jackson from Duluth, Georgia had a massive wreck, out of which he climbed. Let's watch from Onboard, the race-leading car of Scott Pruett. Oh, there you see the hit.
Oh, look at that rebounding in front of Pruett.
Scott is now out of the car, having been relieved by teammate Salvador Duran. Let's hear from him now with Calvin.
Well, Scott certainly had a bird's eye view of the accident with the '88 machine. What did you see, mate?
He just caught the first curb coming out of the chicane, and then caught the second one, and it just turned him and put him straight in the fence. About that time, man, I'm just like on the binders, getting out of the way. I mean, he hit hard, spun around 2 or 3 times, just driving over his head. I mean, it's just if you do a step wrong right now with the little bit of water off the track, or if you jump into curbs like that, it's going to catch you. I mean, it's just a matter of time. It's going to catch you, and unfortunately, it caught them. But we stayed out of the way. The Tailmex car's running really good. We're just playing it by the numbers right now.
You certainly have the experience, Scott, to recognize that, and even when you got faster cars, or not faster cars, but other lead cars right behind you, to really just hold back a little bit under these conditions. What about this young rookie that just got in the car? Will he be able to handle these conditions?
Well, we hope so. I mean, we just left and we forgot to turn on the ignition, so that was, just a little bit of a mishap. That just, excitement of the moment, everything going on. We're on it. We're telling you, just be calm, be cool. Everything's going good. Just don't take any chances. Let's wait till about 3 hours to go, and we got to go, we'll go.
You're looking pretty fresh for this time of the day, mate, but as you said, it is go time. We're getting towards that final quarter if this was a basketball game. Who do you see as the main contenders out here? Who's going to take this victory away from you today?
Oh, the 11 car's been looking strong the whole time. They've been running good. They've been running smart. If something was to happen to us, we got our sister car that's running good, and then 59 car kind of keeps popping up there as well. So it's a 4 or 5 car race right now.
All right, mate, take a break.
Thanks, man.
Good luck to Scott Pruett and the Tailmex team. There you see the field under caution using the new Grand Am system. Prototypes on the left, or driver's right. GT cars with those yellow headlight gels to the inside. The GT cars will then be waved around and take up positions behind the DP field for the restart. There's a number 10 car, one of many cars that have taken this opportunity to top up and rejoin the field before the green.
Well, I tell you what, if anybody says that luck doesn't play a part in winning these races, what if Scott Pruett had run over that same piece of debris that ripped the back off that Porsche? I mean, that was very, very lucky for Scott Pruett that he wasn't in that.
There's the accident site. We mentioned Chad McQueen's accident. This was the scene January a year ago during the test for the 06 Rolex 24. McQueen heavily injured, but there is Chad McQueen after his rehab showing off his x-rays. He wanted to come back here to Daytona to thank the safety and medical extraction team that he says saved his life on that day. He had very, very heavy injuries, but it's great to see Chad McQueen back out here. And now we're seeing raindrops in the glare of the lights around Daytona International Speedway, but it is getting light on the horizon. Sunrise not far away here in the eastern United States, and a long way to go in one of the world's greatest sports car events, the Rolex 24 at Daytona.
Welcome back to the Rolex 24 Hour at Daytona. Sun starts to come up as we just reach 7 o'clock East Coast time, and certainly a little bit of drizzle at the same time. Down here on pit lane, Wayne Taylor, certainly hoping that the sun will shine on his team here today. Wayne, it was a difficult day for you yesterday, but it seems like the team has rebounded well, currently running in the 4th spot. Give us an update on the race car.
Yeah, the car's really good. Obviously our problem when I got in the car after Max at the beginning with the problem with electronics, and we found it was overheating coils. I mean, since then we've had nothing else other than a clutch go out, but we've managed to push start on every pit stop, and the car's really good.
We noticed that you guys were doing single stints at the beginning, and everyone's kind of scratching their head. There was a real reason for that, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think in these events, especially at a 24-hour, most drivers at the start, you're a little bit tense, and you want to get the guys in, get the rhythm, and get out, and so that they can concentrate. And it was tough.
You also had some power steering issues at the same time?
Yeah, that was the main issue that we had. And normally Max would never have a power steering issue. And when I knew he had one, I thought, oh, I'm in big trouble here today. And we seem to have got it rectified after my second stint, and now it's been okay the whole time.
Okay, we're heading back to green. Jeff Gordon certainly done a great job behind the wheel of the 10 machine. He hasn't seen much rain in the testing. He's been in the dark, but this is his first experience of driving in the rain in a sports car.
All right, thank you very much, Calvin. We are indeed green. We have fresh drivers in most of the cars. Darren Manning takes over the 11 car on the race lead as they dive down into turn 1, and the passing is already beginning.
As we saw there, some drizzle coming down, and of course on an already dampish track, not the best conditions for these guys with cool tires. After that, there you see the rain on the lens of that camera out at the International Horseshoe. Probably very slippery out there just at the moment.
Oh, boy.
We don't need bravery here, boys.
Now, as we watched this a moment ago, we heard Wayne Taylor talking about pushing the car on its pit stops because they have no clutch. As a driver, how do you do that?
It's horrible, because apart from else, when you're trying to stop, you know, on your pit stop, as you come to rest, you obviously can't declutch the car and put it into neutral and do the things that you want to do. So it's not that easy. Obviously, you try and get into neutral on these sequential box coming down the pit lane and then just roll into the pit. But getting started is not easy. And obviously, it's absolutely verboten to spin out on the track because you'd be done. Because you can't have anybody else push you. Right. The crew can push out you in the pit lane, but you couldn't have the crew outside push you, outside the system.
There is Darren Manning from England. Made a big hit in the Champ Car Series, did some running in the Indy cars. Now he is a sports car driver. On board with Salvador Duran, shown in second place, working his way through the infield chicane. This is where Justin Jackson had his accident, coming off the corner right here. Looks like the crew here at Daytona International Speedway did a great job of cleaning up that enormous debris field.
Quick job too, yeah.
Yep.
Look at that car bouncing
under
around
the
there.
91.
See how these cars bounce around on the banking. Those bumps still there, been there for 35, 40 years as you go over the tunnel. And they're still there, those bumps.
To 180, 185 miles an hour or so before slowing. We've got a car moving slowly on the infield. One of the Racers Group cars you see on the driver's visor, TRG. That's the 66. That's the car that the team owner, Kevin Buckler, was in when we came on the air a little over an hour ago. He is still listed as the driver. The F1 Air Porsche GT3 Cup car.
Can't work out where it is.
This is NASCAR 1, so he has got virtually the entire lap to go before he'll get back to the pits.
That's a bad spot, so they're going to have to send a truck out to pick him up.
Now, nobody knows these cars better than Kevin Buckler, a former winner of the Worldwide Porsche Cup for the world's most successful privateer Porsche driver. Let's see what we can gain. On board with Paul Edwards in the Pontiac as he approaches the slowing Porsche. Looked at the left side of the road.
Whoa!
Oh, right in the middle of the road. Oh, Kevin Buckler had spun for some reason.
Man, that 19 car there was just squeaked through the prototype car.
Brian Till, what can you tell us?
Well, the word is sketchy down here in the 66 camp. They don't know exactly what the problem is. They think it could be a clutch, but it is a drive issue. Any way you look at it, there's power in that Porsche engine. There's just no drive to the rear wheels, guys.
Oh boy, third in the class, having had a great run through the night. Kevin particularly doing well, so must be maybe there's something let go there on the drive line, which would obviously help to spin him around, because if it goes wrong, you get offline onto the damp track, as we've been saying. Spun him around, and now he's stuck out there waiting for somebody to pull him back.
That is a proud team. Overall winners at the Rolex 24. Class winners at Le Mans. Kevin Buckler showed up here once with a truck full of race cars that has suddenly become priceless. The class winning car and the Daytona Rolex overall winner, both on the same transporter. I said, Kevin, I hope you've got those cars insured well, because they have now provenance like none others. Look at this passing action in the infield in the rain.
That's a 75 car with Colin Braun, young Colin Braun, the youngest driver in the track. He's down, unfortunately, in 28th spot. They've had troubles throughout the day and night with that 75 car. He was running so well yesterday afternoon, having a good dice with Jimmy Johnson. But suddenly started to fade, and then from there on, they've just had nothing but trouble. But still running well now again.
Trouble is always a part of the Rolex 24. The 91 car, as David mentioned, now in 11th place with owner Jim Matthews at the controls. There you see Buckler's car still down low in the oval. He hasn't gotten him moving again.
Well, Dan Weldon's last lap was a 150.6, and Colin Braun's last lap was a 148. So obviously the kid is going very fast, and it's so frustrating when he's going to be down so far in 28th spot.
Part of a two-car team from Samex. Peter Barron is the car owner. He's standing by with Calvin Fish.
Well, certainly this team, Bob, is starting to make an impression on the Rolex Series. Peter Barron, how exciting is it for you as a team owner to have the lead right now? Long way to go still, though.
Yeah, we still have a little bit more than the Watkins Glen 6 hour to go, but you know, it's nice to come out. The sun's coming out, and you know, we're leading. You know, the guys have done just a great job, and Milk has done phenomenal out there. You know, we're really happy, and the guys in the 6 car have done an awesome job coming up from last, and they're up to 6th place now. So hey, it's going pretty good so far.
One of the things I've noticed, Peter, with you as a young team, that you've always gone out of your way to try and get the best drivers in the car. And sometimes that's difficult when you're looking for budget at the same time. How do you balance that equation?
I try to be really nice to them, but the guys, we've had a great relationship with Ryan DL. You know, we brought him first into the Grand Am Series back in '05. And then our crew has been Steve Chalice and Jeff Carter have known Darren Manning for quite some time. And obviously, we've all been friends with Pat here and happy to have Pat along. And Milka, you can't say anything but great things about Milka, and we're just really thrilled to have her.
You got an English guy behind the wheel in these pretty dodgy conditions. He's probably experienced that a few times over the course of his career, Darren Manning. But when you got the lead and you're in tricky conditions like this, when do you make the call and be a bit more conservative and go to the wet tires, Peter?
What we've just been doing is try and see what other guys are doing. A lot of the teams that are playing catch-up and whatnot, they're taking risks and gambles, and they'll pit early and throw on wet tires, and you'll try and follow what the car is and if it's what the driver is, and just see, hey, how are their lap times doing? Like we watched the Gainesco car as the last rainstorm went through. They were the first to go to slicks, and we watched their lap times. We were right at the end of a pit run or a fuel run, so we saw their times were doing good, and it made it easy.
All right, mate, great job today.
Thanks so much.
Well, the 75 kid there, you could just see, can't you, there, the large attachments of the younger driver just absolutely slashing by the leader there, but because it is absolutely pouring with rain now, absolutely slashing past the commentary spot here.
Well, he's 18 years old, Colin Braun. Like most 18-year-olds, he thinks he's immortal.
No fear.
That's right. Well, it is now raining heavily at Daytona International Speedway. The sunrise has been completely obscured. People are going to have to be very careful out there. We'll take a quick break and return live to Daytona. Tonight here on Speed, don't miss the Speed Report. Go beyond the highlights, beyond the stats, and get the why with the Speed Report tonight at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, only here on Speed. And of course, we'll have all the highlights and analysis from this Rolex 24. There's Chad Drain, one of our cameramen, and he has lowered that position slightly in a strong flag-snapping wind and now driving rain. We appreciate all of the members of our crew who have been up all night long.
And that's what happens if you go driving in the driving rain. Yeah. Off at the International Horseshoe, the number 19 car. Maybe he hasn't changed. Pretty well everybody else has come in and stopped. The rain slashing by here in absolute curtains with a very strong westerly wind. So we've got a really tough situation now. The rain absolutely pouring down.
Lots of cars have been in and out of the pits, going to rain tires. There's Michael Valiente in the 19. Michael will be getting married not too far from now in Vancouver, Washington, or Vancouver, Canada, I should say, just across the river from Washington.
Boy, look at it now.
On board the 6th, look out the window. Now, wipers, as far as racing technology has gone, windshield wipers
haven't changed one bit.
Remain slightly problematic as far as the technology.
Well, of course, these screens are so sharply curved, not the sort of thing that a wiper works well on anyway. And of course, the wind blowing over them is 190 miles an hour. It's kind of hard to keep the old wiper blade attached to the glass at 190. But the worst thing about the rain is the drop in temperature on the outside of the glass compared to the drop of the temperature inside.
There's our third place car, Hurley Haywood, behind the wheel of the 59 Brumos Porsche. Here's Calvin.
Well, slight delay here with a left front, but obviously the wet tires going on. Hurley behind the wheel right now, and you talk about the conditions. Very difficult, and when these Daytona prototypes, Hurley actually gets a bit balked there on his way out of pit lane. Another Daytona prototype in his lane, but Hurley wisely just keeps in position, doesn't go down in that fast lane until he gets the okay from the crew. So a little bit of experience showing there by Hurley Haywood, who's certainly a veteran in these type of conditions. But when we had these Daytona prototypes run here in 2004, we had a lot of rain. Really severe misting issues for all of the teams and all of the different chassis, and the teams really had to work hard to get that situation a lot better. For example, the Ganassi crew, for the next year, whenever it rained down in Indianapolis, they used to load the car in a truck, go down to this big parking lot, and just have one of the mechanics drive around and see what it would do to the inside of the windshield. So when they got back in these conditions, the drivers would have a clearer view. So they're the extent that some of these teams will go to try and rectify a problem. There's no point in saying, well, we hope we'll get on top of that situation. They don't see rain for another 6 months during the course of the season, so the teams do all they can do.
It's hard for people to realize how these cars do mist up because it is so hot in the car. There's that window I was talking about, just about taking those tents down. So conditions not ideal for the drivers here. Gearing, it's blowing straight down the tri-oval back into the east end banking. So obviously the cars will be picking up speed into the chicane, losing speed on the main straight in front of the grandstand.
Look at cars off and on. This is one of the Banner Motorsports Pontiac's GXPRs going round and round.
That didn't work too well. I think he was trying to do a bit of a spin there.
There's
number
a 73 off. And the 64
follows him.
Oh my. Well, you get the idea. Puddles building all around the racetrack. The drivers are getting different conditions every corner.
And of course, as you can see now, it's flooding up. This water is deep now. So once it gets beyond the depth of the tread, which it often does when you hit puddles, of course, you just get a complete aquaplane situation where the car literally just floats on top of the water.
Let's see what happened to Leighton Reese in the 06. Out of the horseshoe, headed for the kink. Oh, look what happened.
There's the view. Look at the view. Absolutely zilch.
Yeah. Prototype goes by.
This is that left-hand kink, which normally would be almost flat out. As you can hear, he's definitely not flat at the moment. Puts the brakes on for the horseshoe and just locks up the fronts, slides straight off. No steering, of course, but the front's locked.
Wow.
And joins the other GT parking lot.
Well, this has been a bit of a microburst. There's the 76 Krone Racing.
Microburst? It's still absolutely tipping it down.
I'm speaking in terms of duration, not intensity. Did you become a weatherman? We're told it's not going to last long, but that is cold comfort because now we can barely see the backstretch here at Daytona International Speedway.
Easy for us to. Whoa, there's a 19
said it before.
car.
Television cameras make it look a lot better than it is. There's another of the GT cars out there.
This is almost certain to bring out a full course caution because I think the officials will decide that the weather, the rain has become too deep on the infield there, especially where it's so flat. It picks up. There comes the caution flag. Safety car be coming out momentarily, I imagine.
Now, back in 2004, they actually red flagged this race because of heavy rain. And as you can see, we have monsoon-like conditions here now.
It puddles so badly on the infield because it is so flat. The banking's fine, funnily enough, in the rain. Because the water just runs up. But of course, you can't see diddly squat because the windscreen misses up. Because Jimmy Johnson yesterday, when he got out of the car, if you remember yesterday afternoon, he got out of the car and said, I had no idea these cars would be so hot. Diddly squat is a technical term, meaning
not very good.
Not very good.
Well, a couple of years ago in that rain, one of the drivers in the field, as you take a look there at what they can see.
See, what are they complaining about? Perfect view.
At 180 miles an hour.
Drivers complain about anything. What's wrong with that?
Well, this is why the open wheel guys are so.
Go on, stick it to it. Don't piddle about there in low gear. Get it stuck in a fifth and let her go. Easy for me. There's a
easily done from up here.
Lakerton Reese off again.
Yeah, boy, he's having a terrible time out there. Keep in mind, those GXPRs from Pontiac are really turning their first race laps. And the Banner Racing team has done a great job to get them in the positions that they are. 3 years ago now when it rained so heavily. Scott Dixon still laughs about it. That was his first Rolex 24. And he said not only were the wipers kind of problematic, but the inside of the windshield misted up. We had to use a squeegee and a rag, and you're trying to drive the car, belted back in the seat. You want to reach all the way out to
back
the windshield.
in the late 60s in the GT40s, we used to have a kitchen mop, you know, like a dishwashing mop.
Yeah.
In the car with us.
Like a swabby.
So that when the windshield missed up inside, you could rub it with the old mop, because you couldn't reach it with your hand. Obviously, when you belt it in, you can't reach the screen.
The old hand defrost.
Unless you're an orangutan with long arms.
Let's go to Brian Till in the pit lane before this gets any worse.
Before what gets any worse, Bob?
The commentary.
I don't know what you're complaining about down there, Till. For God's sake, get out there.
You know, it could be Hobbs' weather report that's created all these problems, you know, because the guys at Banner Racing may have been listening to it. They may have been gambling because Leighton Reese is having the problem, so was Paul Edwards. You know why? They were on slicks. They may have been listening to Hobbs' microburst comment down here. So they've been on slicks. They just came in and went to rain, so you can understand why they've been struggling. Calvin?
Well, the number 10 car is in. Jeff Gordon said enough's enough. He's getting out of there. He's going to put Jan Magnussen, who's certainly used to these conditions. We talked about Jeff Gordon's experience in these cars. He did a couple of tests before getting here. Certainly felt very comfortable in the car. He got some nighttime testing early in January here at the big 3-day test, but he'd never driven the car in the rain. So over the course of the last 12 hours, he certainly had a gut full of that. But right now, Jan Magnussen, one of the most experienced and quick sports car drivers in the world, is now behind the wheel of the SunTrust machine. He's going to get this thing fired up, and as we know, they've got a clutch issue here, so you see the mechanics pushing these guys. And the SunTrust car is fired up, and Magnussen is on his way.
What sort of wimps are those Nextel Cup drivers? That is pathetic.
All right. Getting ready for a network cut-in. We're not sure if it's the Weather Channel or National Geographic after that downpour, but it does appear to be lightening up now here at Daytona. There is Jeff Gordon, who has had a whole bunch of new pages for his personal memoirs of racing, hoping to become the first man to win 13 races at Daytona in both sports cars and stock cars. The late Dale Earnhardt scored 13 wins in stock cars. Hurley Haywood has 13 wins at Daytona in sports cars. Jeff Gordon has 12, all in stock cars. If he and this team, Jan Magnussen, Wayne Taylor, Max Angelelli, can come through and win this one, he will have his own place in the record book.
Just look at that water coming off those front tires. Of course, rain tires are really just like a gear pump. They'll pump hundreds of gallons of water a minute.
And as you see that water jammed through all of the cracks in the bodywork, that can get into the electrics and make life very interesting. Let's hear how interesting life has been for the 4-time Nextel Cup champion with Calvin.
Well, Jeff Gordon discussing his experience with the crew. What was that all about, mate?
Well, they asked me if I changed the brake bias and some stuff like that. I said, no, I couldn't take my hands off the steering wheel. Yeah, that was an experience right there. You know, to be on the slicks, about the worst condition you can be in when it hits like that. And I'm just glad I kept it on the racetrack, because even when we put the wets on, I couldn't go fast enough getting heat in them to make them work. So I was searching high and low and just going straight, you know, was something. So I've had a blast doing this. It's been great fun. And you know, I'm a little disappointed in my performance. I feel like, you know, we've been good, but every time I start getting good, I can't see out of the windshield. So you can make an excuse all day long, and Max goes out there and runs, you know, a second faster than anybody. So I've been having a lot of fun, and hopefully we can get back up to at least a podium finish.
We heard a rumor that Jimmy Johnson and Tony Stewart started to laugh when it rained and you were out there on the racetrack, but those guys obviously discussed what the experience was like. When you're out there in these conditions, you thinking, what the heck was I thinking when I said yes to Wayne on doing this deal?
I wasn't that moment, but you know, I give these guys a lot of credit to be able to run in these types of conditions. It's so competitive out there, and you know, the cars are very equal, and you know, to run against some of the great drivers that are out there, I've been having a lot of fun. But I don't know, I was pretty impressed by Jimmy in the rain. He was looking pretty good. That was Monsoon, though. I don't know. That was a little bit different.
That's a great job, mate. Well done.
Thank you.
I'll say it again. Jeff Gordon has been a great sport about it this weekend. He, like so many other guys who spend their time on dry weather oval tracks, realize that these sports car guys running in all conditions at top speeds are pretty fair shoes as well. We'll take a break and return live to Daytona International Speedway. Stay with us for more from the Rolex 24. Welcome back live to Daytona.
See, that's what I said we had.
On board with Paul Evans in the 06 Pontiac GXPR. using a mop on the end of a stick to try to keep the fog off the inside of his windshield. Look at the water on the dash. A moment ago, I'd said it had let up a bit. Our cameraman, Rick Rice, said, I think we were just in the eye of the storm, and he was spot on, because moments ago it started to bucket down again here at Daytona, and we remain under a full course caution, the 11th thus far, the Rolex 24, as we approach the bottom of the hour, our 18th hour in this year's race. We'll be with you live all the way to the finish and beyond, so stay with us here on Speed. There's the number 75 from Krone Racing, Colin Braun, all of 18 years old, but a 3-year veteran, entering his 3rd year in the Rolex Sports Car Series. Currently 26th in the overall. He is an amazing young man. His father, Jeff, is an engineer. It's a family effort. His brother, Travis, is working as a journalist this weekend after logging data for that team. He, too, is a teenager. Lee Diffie takes a look at Colin, who started here at Daytona 2 years ago as a part of Team 16, and last year, with his team, was in contention for a championship.
Last June, at just 17 years, 9 months of age, Colin Braun became the youngest winner of a major North American auto race, the Brumos Porsche 250 here at Daytona. Tobacco age restrictions, however, forced him to sit out 3 races. If it weren't for that, Colin may have joined teammate Jörg Bergmeister as co-champions of the Rolex Sports Car Series.
It's obviously a little disappointing I couldn't run those 3 races, but that was part of the deal. You know, sometimes it's good to be young, sometimes it's bad to be young. It's just the way it worked out. So I'm very fortunate to be kind of a driver raised by an engineer. So I have a good understanding about how things work. And a lot of people probably don't know the fact that I have a go-kart track in my backyard. That's pretty cool. It's actually a track my dad and Fermin Velez, who drove the Scandia car, designed together. A little longer than a 3rd mile, but I like to go out there and just do laps and stay fit and keep sharp.
After coming so close last year, Colin has high expectations for 2007.
Our goals are pretty much to qualify in every pole and win every race that we can. I think that would pretty much guarantee us winning the championship. So I can't go out on the racetrack not expecting or not hoping and having the goal set to be the quickest car and the car that, you know, wins the race. And I just don't work like that.
You heard Colin Braun mention the name Fermin Velez of Spain, a great sports car driver in his own right, passed away of cancer a few years ago. I think he'd be pretty proud to know that that track he and Jeff Braun built has produced another terrific young racer in Colin Braun. Now Max Papis is his teammate, one of his teammates for this race, and Mad Max is standing by with Calvin Fish.
Max trying to stay dry here. Max, talk about the very special relationship that you have with the Braun family. I mean, not just with Colin now as your teammate for this year, but how did it all begin?
Actually, no, Colin's father was my first engineer when I came over in '96, driving for Ferrari, actually here in Daytona. And, you know, I didn't know, I knew actually he had a son, you know, but it was pretty cool that now he's, you know, he's my co-driver. And, you know, he's a young kid, but he's a very smart guy.
Talk about the fact you're coming back full-time now in Daytona Prototypes. You won the championship with Chip Ganassi and Scott Pruett back in 2004. Team has had quite a few changes here over the offseason. Went from the Ford power plant to the Pontiac. What do you expect for this season?
You know, one of the major things here in the team, you know, definitely was a change, you know, towards Pontiac and GM product, and I came with that as well. I think, you know, it was a great change. You know, the team has showed a lot of progress. Unfortunately, this race, you know, we had a little bit of problem, but we're still hanging on there. You know, we have great engineering, you know, a very good team spirit, and you know, I'm gonna give everything I have because one championship is not enough, and these guys deserve more. So I'm gonna really try hard for them.
You talk about team spirit and really digging deep. How deep do you have to dig when you get into a situation like you're in a very long race, the car's many laps down? I guess you just have to look at the big picture in the championship and try and score as many points?
I think if you're a racer, you just want to go for it. You know, it doesn't matter if you're 20 laps down, 1 lap down, or in the lead. I think it's what you have in your heart, and I think that you can't change it. The day when that day will come, that you think different, you better stay home.
All right, mate. Best of luck the rest of the way.
Thanks a lot, guys. You know, pleasure to be here in Daytona. Thanks for the support. Ciao.
Ciao, Mad Max. Boy, it's amazing how the time goes by. Seems like only yesterday Max Papis made his introduction to the fans here at Daytona, driving that Ferrari 333 SP at qualifying laps and quicker in the closing stages of the Rolex 24.
I don't know why, but that drive he put in that road race at Texas that you and I covered a long time ago in that Ferrari. Just through those Mickey Mouse chicanes, all those walls everywhere. And I mean, he just rocketed along that day. It was just extraordinary.
Now here's Max, a mentor to a young driver, a father himself. He and his wife Tatiana now have a little boy. We have a whole new generation of young drivers out here like Colin Braun and Graham Rahal, Bobby Rahal's son, who is out here in this race, and the young Frizzell brothers, Bert and Brian, sons of Brad Frizzell.
Yeah, and of course their dad Brad, who I raced against many moons ago, just such a keen supporter of those two boys of his, and always looking for money and looking for opportunities and really putting them on the road to what looks like being a pretty good career.
And another young driver kind of close to my heart, my son Matt, getting his first taste of the Rolex 24 this weekend. Matt, you know, retirement fund I usually refer to him as.
Good luck.
As you can imagine, when everybody starts throwing on rain tires, the boys from tire supplier Hoosier, now in the third and final year of their contract to supply tires to the entire Grand American Rolex Sports Car Series presented by Crown Royal Special Reserve, they really have to start busting tires to get the slicks off and the wets on. And then, of course, change back. Earlier in the weekend, Mike Johnson took a closer look at the sheer logistical effort it takes for Hoosier to supply a race like the Rolex 24.
The unsung heroes of this place are right here at the Hoosier Tire Garage. I'm standing here with Mike Kramer, who's actually the project manager for Hoosier Tires. Now, you had to bring 84 people to do 2 shifts to go all through the night to run this. What else do you have to bring to staff up for something of this magnitude?
Well, we bring 18 tractor trailer loads full of tires. That's about 7,000 dries and 5,000 wets, and all the equipment to get them mounted. After each pit stop, the teams will bring the used set back here, drop them off, and they'll run through the system, and we'll put out about 60 sets an hour, which is roughly about a pit stop every hour for each car. We hope to get them back within the hour so that as they rotate one set in, they can pick up one set on the way out. That's way one trip, and they can do both things.
Well, these guys will probably never see anything but this tire shop and the inside of their hotel room for this entire weekend. They do a great job, and they bring a great product.
And this weekend, an announcement was made that the Pirelli company will come on board as the sole tire supplier for the 2008 to 2010 seasons. For Grand American, Hoosier will remain the tire supplier to the companion series, the Coney Challenge. We'll take a break and return. Boy, the fans are really getting their money's worth this weekend here at the Rolex 24. We'll be back. Speed's coverage of the Rolex 24 at Daytona is brought to you by Ruby Tuesday. Simple, fresh American dining from start to finish. And powered by Pontiac and the 260 horsepower Solstice GXP. Well, you just saw some pictures of Daytona when the sun was out. That has not been the case of late, but it's not going to stop these fans. We have had an absolute monsoon, and I'd be tempted to say it's lightning, but that will no doubt simply bring on another massive cloudburst. I want to correct something I said earlier in response to all you emails coming to SpeedTV.com about the legacy of late Dale Earnhardt here at Daytona, referring to 13 wins. I was talking about points races. When you take into account exhibitions like the IROC Series, non-points races like the Daytona Duels and so forth, the Intimidator racked up 34 overall race victories here at Daytona and remains the all-time leader in that category. There's a look at what the drivers see, and that's not really an exaggeration due to the TV cameras. It's on board one of the Mazda Speed Mazdas. Let's hear from the boss of that effort with Brian Till.
Sylvan Tremblay, head of the Mazda Speed effort here. Rain really hasn't been your enemy in the 70 car. Seems to be visibility.
Yeah, you can't see, you can't drive. So Rainey's doing a great job. Unfortunately, we lost our good anti-fog windshield in an incident, per se, in the garage before the weekend. And now we're running with standard stuff. So we had to go to back good old club racing, dishwashing soap, and do what we can. I mean, the weather's been tough for everybody, but if you can't see, you can't drive. So that's what we're fighting right now. That's our biggest problem.
So literally, the crew guys, soap on their hands, rubbing it on the inside of the windshield. That should take care of the fog, you hope?
If not, they'll have clean hands.
Maybe it's time to eat breakfast. All the crew guys down here are clean, Calvin.
I'm here with Eddie Cheever. Eddie, has certainly been a tough night for you guys. You had the lead here last year till late, and last night you're running up in the top 3. Things looking good. What have been the problems you've had this year?
On the Crown Royal car, we had some gearbox problems that we've never had. We're trying to figure out what that was. We had to stop twice to fix the stack. Then we had a few people bumping into us, got caught up in a few accidents, and just cascaded from there. And on the 51 car, we had a whole series of people running into us in the straightaway and whatnot. So I've had just about as much fun as I can have in 24 hours. I'm looking forward to wrap this thing up and go home and figure it out. But it's an amazing event, and it's been a gruel for the mechanics. It's been raining and cold and nasty, and long race, a long race.
Talk about the program with the Fab cars. Been pretty much an unloved chassis over the last couple of years, but you guys have kind of taken it under your wing. What is the future of that program?
Well, when we tested it this winter, we saw there was a lot of potential in it. It's a car that Porsche spent a lot of time working on the chassis. I think one of its biggest downfalls is it was the first Fab car ever designed. It's evolved through that, but the bodywork has never been changed. And when the Riley came along, they were a little bit more modern. When the Crawford came along, it had another steps forwards, a few steps forward. So I believe it's a company, a brand with a lot of potential, and we're working hard on it. And we should have some new bodywork to put on it by Mexico. We're hoping to have it for here, but it's a very sound design. Now we got to turn it into a race winner.
I understand at the test when you kind of laid the data over between the two chassis, the Fab car was actually pretty impressive through the infield, so it seems to have good mechanical grip. You feel when you get on top of the aero, it could be a competitive package again.
Of our two cars, the Fab car was definitely quicker in the infield, where the aerodynamics played a much smaller part. But when you get it up at high speed, it wasn't very competitive at all. So I agree with you, as do the engineers, that we just need to focus on it and start working, start testing, start modifying.
All right, mate, stay dry.
You're going to have to, I can sit under the tent. I don't know what you're going to do.
Thanks, mate.
All right, thanks, Calvin. Saw a few shots there of my son Matt out there in the 42 Sahlen's Porsche. I must say, David, I recall Ned Jarrett talking about his sons on the racetrack. It's a different feeling when you're watching your own flesh and blood out there.
Yeah, it is. It looks so easy when you're doing it yourself and you don't ever feel any danger and everything looks fine. When you suddenly see how fast these cars really are going from the outside, it sort of brings the whole thing home to you.
Well, I'm sure he's loving every minute of it, no matter how bad it was. Matt's still very early in his career, as you might imagine. Drove in the Star Mazda Championship last year, and his high moment came at Trois-Rivières. That's the call.
Matt Varsha is about to win his first Star Mazda Championship race presented by Goodyear. There it is, the checkered flag waits, and Matt Varsha has won at Trois-Rivières.
I could tell you he was one very happy camper after
Well,
that.
of course, he might well be, because that Trois-Rivières is not an easy track. It's very difficult. It's a temporary track going through the streets of Trois-Rivières. You and I used to go there a lot. It's a very enjoyable place to go to, but not an easy racetrack going through that tunnel. And he just drove away from the start there. That, obviously, as you can see, it finished under caution.
Maybe someday he'll have an opportunity to drive one of these. And I'd like to thank the Nonamaker family with Team Sahlen and Matt's co-drivers, Mike Ariema, John Mays, David Cameron, Chris Wilcox, for making his experience here at Daytona as much fun as it's been, and that is a lot.
Now these guys are just coming off caution. The safety car lights are off. It's about to pull in. They're just about going down the back straight now. There's Darren Manning in the 11 car, who's second. But he has another one of the he has a bit of traffic between himself and the two lead cars.
Let's check the running order and listen to this leaderboard. You'll only hear one of these at the Rolex 24. A1GP driver from Mexico, Salvador Duran, in the 01 car will lead away from open-wheeled veteran Darren Manning. Dan Weldon, former IRL champion and Indy 500 winner, is in third place. Hurley Haywood, one of the all-time great sports car drivers, is in fourth. Jan Magnussen, who has won in everything he's ever driven, in fifth. Then Thomas Enge from Formula One and the Indy cars in sixth. Mark Wilkins in seventh. Romain Dumas, Porsche factory driver, in eighth. Young Michael Valiente in ninth. And Memo Gidley of the United States in 10th. Hopefully the rain is done. We will come back off our 11th full course caution flag. Now right behind race leader Salvador Duran is his teammate Dan Weldon.
who could be a spoiler to Darren Manning. This team have already been complaining about being held up by the second Ganassi car. They came in to do a strategic pit stop and change tyres, but of course all that's gone by the wayside now after this long caution because of the rain.
Green flag is out. We are back underway at the Rolex. Third place on track, but not on the leaderboard, is Colin Braun in the 75 Krone Racing. Oh, and he's going to lose some positions down there in turn 1. That's the 99, our pole sitting Gainsco Bob Stallings racing car that hit trouble right from the very beginning of this race. They've spent a lot of time in the garage in the pit lane. Former Champ Car titleist Jimmy Vasser now at the controls. They are 40th in the overall running.
Very, very slippery on the infield. The water's still pretty deep. These rain tires are going to have their work cut out. Obviously, these tires pump the water at a prodigious rate, turning into spray, which ultimately blows away. So the track dries out pretty quick as soon as it stops raining. But I think it's still drizzling just a little bit. So it's going to be very, very tricky for 4 or 5 laps here at very least.
All DPs up front under the new restart program here at Grand American Rolex Sports Car Racing. The GT field follows, and that allows the competitors in each class to run close together and not get mixed up with the faster prototypes. Mixed up and separated.
Salvador Duran really legging it down the road there. This is around the banking where, of course, the rain is at its least because it runs off there so much.
Hey, David, you were talking about the track conditions and drying. Remember, here at Daytona International Speedway, yeah, the banking will dry first because obviously the water runs downhill. The infield will dry next. But there are weepers around this racetrack, and one of the worst places is down in turn 1 where you drop off the banking into turn 1. It caught Oswaldo Negre out in qualifying the other day, and that was a day when it had been dry for at least 2 days since we had rain. So even though the sun will come out later and things will dry up, there's still going to be places around this racetrack that are, well, almost booby trap.
And of course, right in front of you, the pit lane itself is full of puddles. So when these guys come in, those puddles won't go away because nothing's going through them to dry them out. And when they hit the pit lane, it's tricky. On the way into the pit lane, the road gets very flat as you come off NASCAR floor 4 into the pit lane. A lot of water there, and a lot of water down at turn 1, as you said there, Brian. And it'll stay there for a long time.
Kind of interesting that the Rooster Tails, despite all the water that we've had on the racetrack, the Rooster Tail's not as tall as we're used to seeing with open wheel cars such as Formula One racing in the rain. Of course, is due to the fact that bodywork surrounds the wheels. It tends to keep that mist down, and I'm sure the drivers appreciate that.
Well, it keeps the mist down, but unfortunately it keeps the water on the track, so the mist, instead of blowing up into the air and just blowing away, gets trapped under the fenders and just dropped back onto the track.
Saw Jeff Gordon looking on, watching Jan Magnussen do his thing. Currently in 4th. And moving up. It's probably a bit of a new experience for this young man, Salvador Duran of Mexico. On board the number 70 in the GT class. Randy Popes, 3rd in class, 15th in the overall.
Despite again, you can see that windscreen's pretty misted up in spite of what they were doing with the soap.
Here, just how delicate he's having to be with the throttle.
And right here, the road is very flat, and this puddles up big time around there.
You can see the glare of the cars following him in the rearview mirror. Brian Till talked about how the rain is a great equalizer. You see, even the more powerful prototypes aren't able to leave the GT cars.
Randy Post, of course, is a pretty
good shoe.
He's a very, very good shoe. Underrated, one of those guys that just missed out on maybe some bigger and better opportunities, but has turned into be an absolutely A1 GT driver.
Long list of championships on his resume. There's a look at the radar, and I'd say that looks pretty good. Perhaps the rain is done. Of course, I'm touching wood as I say that. Long way to go here at Daytona. We'll be back as we approach the top of the hour here on the East Coast. We'll be back with more Live on Speed.